Today on Hearts of Heroes, a mighty storm hits western Pennsylvania, setting off destructive flash floods.
I've lived in Bethel Park since I was 5 years old. I've never seen anything like it.
As water quickly rises, people at a restaurant find themselves trapped in the muddy rapids.
And then we look out the window and the cars are just getting washed away.
Meanwhile, the owners of a canine daycare center must go to extreme lengths to rescue the frightened animals in the flood.
I yelled for my son, there's some alive, and I need help.
With no time to lose, first responders were doing everything they could to get to those in need.
In flash flooding, the #1 no-no is getting in your car and driving. That's how most people are injured and killed. But in 2 small communities in Pennsylvania in 2018, it wasn't just the threat to drivers. The flash flooding overtook buildings too. This forced first responders to make life and death decisions in a snap for both humans and animals.
Located on the western end of Pennsylvania, Bethel Park is a small borough just outside of Pittsburgh.
You're 30 minutes to downtown Pittsburgh, you're 30 minutes to Elizabeth, Finleyville, the woods. It's kind of in the middle of everything.
With its rustic woods, yet close proximity to the city, it offers both a small feel with the convenience of modern living.
There's a lot of things you can do, like the horseback riding and the covered bridges to see.
I've been coming to Bethel Park most of my life. I think it's a great place to live, a great place to raise a family.
Teresa Davis lives in the neighboring community of Bridgeville, just 6 miles down the road.
I own a dog resort, boarding, grooming, training, and daycare.
She and her son Reed have a special connection with the animals that they look after.
I mean, most of the dogs I've had was since they were puppies. They become, just a part of your whole family.
On June 20th, 2019, the forecast predicted heavy rain, but in the early afternoon, it still looked like a typical summer day.
From my recollection, it was actually a beautiful day. We knew that there was a chance of rain, but I didn't know there was that much rain coming.
With the sun shining, people went about their daily business. John SECRIST and his wife-to-be, Shirley, were putting last-minute touches on their upcoming wedding.
We were busy making sure our centerpieces were done and we had all our things together.
We wanted to go get something to eat, and we went down the road and it started to rain, and we said, well, let's go to the trolley stop.
As Shirley and John sat down at the trolley stop for lunch, the weather quickly started to change.
You could see the clouds coming in, and the sky kind of had an odd color to it, and you could just tell something bad was coming.
We got flash flood warnings on our phones, and we all ignored them. Who actually ever gets involved in a flash flood like that?
The U.S. National Weather Service issues flash flood warnings anytime there is the threat of sudden, violent floods during heavy rainfall. Flash flooding can take anywhere from hours to even minutes to develop. Emergency responders have precautions for people who are caught in these situations.
Can't state this enough. Do not drive through flooded water. You're not going to make it. Now we've got to risk sending a firefighter or a police officer in to save you, and that's very dangerous.
Weather can be extremely unpredictable, especially during storm season. So it's extremely important that you pay attention to things like emergency weather alerts. It can mean the difference between life and death.
Over in Bridgeville, Teresa Davis was closing up her doggy daycare for the night.
I mean, there was some talk about some flooding, but when I left here in the evening, it wasn't even raining. And then when I got home, which is about 10 minutes from the facility, it did start to kind of sprinkle and rain, and then it was pretty much downpouring.
Teresa soon got word that her shop was in danger of flooding.
There was some other people that obviously live on this street, so I got a message that some water was rising, and they sent a video of a little bit. So I told my family, well, we better just go down to secure everything, make sure everything's okay.
As she and her son drove to the daycare, things took a turn for the worse.
It was just kind of a Wizard of Oz tornado feeling in a way. Like trees were falling, it was really raining hard, so it was just a very dark, dreary, scary feeling.
At the restaurant, the staff and patrons also took notice of the ominous weather.
It was starting to really rain, really heavy. And I happened to look past John down the hallway, and there was water coming in.
Within a matter of minutes, the restaurant would be under a deluge of water. Coming up, the restaurant and those inside are no match for Mother Nature.
The glass doors shattered, like there was massive noise, and then all the water starts like rushing in.
Then, animals are also trapped by that vicious flooding.
The water was coming in fast and it was getting higher.
But first, a safety tip.
Inadequate addressing can be a serious problem for first responders, potentially affecting both response time and safety.
Use a minimum of 3-inch high white reflective numbers on a dark background and identify your street address on both sides of your mailbox. This can help us get to you quicker.
When your safety is involved, seconds count. So don't keep them guessing. Help them respond quickly.
In June of 2018, a major storm hit western Pennsylvania. As people in 2 neighboring communities braced themselves, they had no idea that they were about to be in the center of a flash flood. Nikki Cialona was having dinner at a restaurant with her boyfriend and his brother when she noticed that the water outside was rising.
And at that point, you know, I told my boyfriend, why don't you go move your truck, like, just in case? By the time he got from our table to the door, it was a foot high.
Then, suddenly it hit.
The glass doors shattered, like there was massive noise, and then all the water starts like rushing in.
You couldn't believe how fast it was. And they say flash flood, that gives it a whole new meaning.
Everyone inside the restaurant quickly moved up to the 2nd level, but the water continued to grow.
And then we look out the window and the cars are just bobbing in the parking lot, and someone says, oh, the cars are getting washed away. And I tried to look for my car, and I couldn't find it.
With no way to escape, the staff and customers were trapped. By this time, police and the fire department began responding.
I remember driving there, and I just remember thinking to myself, this is bad. I've lived in Bethel Park since I was 5 years old. I've never seen anything like it.
While first responders were attempting to get to the restaurant, in neighboring Bridgeville, Teresa Davis and her son arrived at the Canine Center.
By the time we got down here, which was maybe, 15 minutes, 20 minutes later, it was just a complete river. Everything was underwater. You couldn't see parking lots anymore. You couldn't distinguish whose house was what.
So we had to go behind the building and come down.
I mean, I don't even know how we came down the hillside. I mean, I became a mountain goat, just falling down, sliding. It was just, you didn't think of anything else but I have to get there.
With first responders stretched thin, helping to save and evacuate the residents of Bridgeville, Teresa and Reed took action to get inside the center.
Employee Cody Funk was at home when a friend told him about the flash flooding.
He said Bridgeville's basically underwater. I kind of jumped out of my chair and just had to go down there.
Unable to get in touch with Teresa or Reed, Cody arrived at the center. He too realized that he had to do something to save those helpless animals.
I just started going into the water, but the current was very strong. I was basically holding on to sides of buildings and climbing on top of cars and just working my way back around to where the street was because I knew I could get swept away any minute.
Growing increasingly tired fighting the raging flood, Cody knew his own life was in danger. He had no choice but to get out.
Cody's actions were heroic. He made the smart choice to remove himself from the situation, possibly saving his own life.
I started walking down the street and everything's just destroyed around me. People are on the side of the street crying and everything. There's police everywhere. Felt like Armageddon or something.
Coming up, with her animals threatened, Teresa Davis comes upon a terrifying sight.
So I shined the light and I couldn't believe what I saw. 8 feet of water in the building.
In June of 2018, powerful flash floods overtook the small communities of Bethel Park and Bridgeville, Pennsylvania. First responders, who are all volunteers there, by the way, jumped in to help and save those who were trapped in the disaster. Teresa Davis and her son Reed knew that it was going to be up to them to save the animals that were trapped in their daycare facility.
I was panicking. I really didn't think, from what I was seeing from the outside of the building, that anybody was going to be alive.
Teresa and her son were able to gain access to the flooded building through an upper-level parking area.
There was water through the entire door there coming up the stairs.
It looked like an Olympic-sized pool in our play area. I just started yelling, "Dogs, dogs," and no one made a peep. And I just decided I was gonna jump in.
Which was insane to me, because I didn't, there's electricity, there's chemicals, there's whatever just going through there. We didn't know what was gonna happen.
I was probably like hyperventilating, and I swam over the gates, and I was holding my cell phone, so I could only swim with one arm and hold the phone up so I could see, and I shined the light, and then there was a kennel that had floated into the middle, and there was a dog standing on that. I just yelled for my son, "There's some alive, and I need help."
As Teresa and Reed searched for the surviving animals, first responders in Bethel Park were trying to figure out a plan to save the people trapped in the restaurant.
We had to figure out how we were going to try to get in to get the patrons out. At that time, there was no boats available to us, no swiftwater rescue teams were available to us. So we had to start improvising and coming up with our own plan.
There was really no good way in. The water was coming in fast, it was getting higher, and at that time the cars were starting to break loose from where they were parked, and it created another danger in itself.
I was on top of the table at that point, but it kept rising and rising and rising. And then once it got to the second level, I started panicking a little bit. I was already thinking about smashing the windows and swimming out, but I mean, that current was crazy. And I remember one lady being like, "I can't swim."
It was really chaotic in there, but we tried to keep everybody calm, get them up out of the water the best that we could.
In any emergency situation, it is vitally important to remain calm. When people panic, they can often make decisions that can put their lives in danger.
It was really intense there for a while, especially with the water when it kept on rising and it wasn't going down. And we couldn't go any higher because we was as high as we could possibly go on top of the tables.
Outside rescuers were about to embark on a risky maneuver to get the people inside.
Me, one of our other firefighters, and one of the police officers tied ourselves off to the back of the tow truck and tried to get to the patrons.
At this time, we had no idea if the patrons inside were injured or, anything, if they were okay. But the water was just so strong that it instantly started pulling me. It was like, I can't even explain it. It didn't care who or what I was. It just wanted to take me.
At that point, we tried to come up with another plan of getting to the patrons in the restaurant.
By this point, the flood was beginning to recede, but the ground floor of the restaurant was still inundated. So a decision was made to get the back door open to drain the lower level.
And when they opened up the back door, that water just rushed right out. Everything was washed out the door with such force.
When the water receded and we were able to gain access, I was tied off to a telephone pole, and I just made my way through the front door to make sure that everything was all right. At that time, the Swift Water team was arriving too, so they were helping me out with getting the patrons out of there.
Rescuers were able to get everyone out of the restaurant safely. But over in Bridgeville, Teresa and Reed still did not know how many animals in their facility had survived.
This building's very big. It's like 22,000 square feet. So you're swimming in 8 feet of water in these hallways. There's debris all under you, hitting you. Everything's not where it was.
So we moved from that room into this hallway.
And then we started finding the dogs, clenching onto whatever they could find to hold on to. Some were braced against the wall in a kennel. Some were on tops of kennels, teetering on them.
One by one, Teresa and Reed pulled the frightened animals out of the flooded building.
We were probably in here for about, it seemed like eternity, but it was probably like 45 minutes swimming around, trying to get each dog. And even opening the doors that were shut, the pressure of the water, it was hard to get them open to even get into some of the dogs.
But not all of the animals fully realized the jeopardy that they were in.
And then the last dog, he was on this couch sleeping when the water came in, and he stayed there the whole time. He just rode the couch out.
So he wasn't even wet, and so that was, a very happy ending.
As the water receded and the animals now safe, first responders and caring bystanders were able to pitch in and help carry them to dry ground.
Everybody was, asking if we were okay, and the fire department started to come through, so we just gathered whatever we could find to tether the dogs, carry the dogs up to higher ground, away from all the sludge and mud on the street. And a local veterinarian facility was called in.
Although the story had a happy ending, the entire experience was super emotional for Teresa and Reed.
Once all the dogs were upstairs and safe, I was just kind of in a state of shock. It was just exhausting. Like I just kind of fell to the ground and was holding the dogs that I had, and just it was like, you know, is this coming to an end?
Coming up, the communities of Bridgeville and Bethel Park go about the task of cleaning up and starting over.
It looked like a war zone. You couldn't even really tell like what was what anymore.
But first,
having a preparedness kit is important for any natural disaster, and it becomes essential to have when children and especially infants are involved.
Bottled water, flashlight, batteries, and food are all important to have in a kit. But if you have children to care for, then you should also include diapers, wipes, clean bottles, and even toys.
Being prepared to take care of not just yourself, but those that need you during a disaster is essential in protecting those you love.
After disastrous flash floods hit western Pennsylvania, residents and first responders went to incredible lengths to rescue both neighbors and defenseless animals that were caught in the muddy rapids. But with the storm behind them, they are now rebuilding and looking forward to the future.
I mean, the street looked like a war zone. You couldn't even really tell like what was what anymore. Then you just saw the community start to come together. I mean, people just like showed up, volunteering and helping and cleaning up, dropping off water, sending over food. So that part was very touching, and you know, you realize when a community goes through that, like you can pull together in this world.
I was down here for a couple weeks helping out, just clear out the mud and debris and whatever, and working, you know, long hours, and just trying to get things done as quickly as possible.
Today, Teresa's doggy daycare is back and better than ever.
So this is completely redone. Everything's stainless steel. It's salvageable now. We've done the walls with the FRP halfway up so that they will just have to take the baseboard off, and it's the drywall's up so it can air out, so if we ever have to replace again. So hopefully that will never happen, but just in case.
Incredibly, many of the same animals who survived the flood that night are still with Teresa.
This is Lincoln, and this is the dog that was in the lobby who was able to survive on the cushion. So we're happy he's still with us, because he was the last one that we were able to get to. So we were ecstatic to see he had survived. Look at that. Yeah.
Over in Bethel Park, the trolley stop is also back in business, which gave everyone a chance to catch up following the catastrophe.
Did you ever imagine when that rain started that this would have gotten to the level it gotten to, and then other people around you starting to panic as we've heard?
Never imagined it would be that fast. Whenever they say flash flood, that's no joke.
When you guys came, what I really thought was fantastic is you asked, are we okay? Any medical situations going on? And you took the children out first to get them out. And then anybody else that was older, and you just took us out, put our life jackets on, and walked each one of us out to safety. You guys are my hero. I can't thank you enough.
I would hope that that message that you're giving gets out there to all of our communities across this country, that these men and women put themselves in harm's way every day, and I look across the table here at young people. You guys putting yourselves on the line for strangers, for people you don't even know. Thank you.
That's one of the biggest satisfactions we have, is helping these people out when time comes. That's what we're here for. That's what we train for.
We're just so grateful for all the experience you have, and for you guys, young people, to step up and give assurances to Shirley and John and all of us that when needed, you're there. We're so grateful.
Nothing more needs to be said.
Thank you very much.
We can and should always prepare for natural disasters, but there's always going to be something that's out of our control. The one thing we can rely on, first responders. They'll be right there to step in as soon as we need help. And for that, we want to say thank you. I also want to say thank you for watching. I'm Ginger Zee. We'll see you next time.